Nancy Rommelmann is a journalist and an author of many books, including her latest 40 Bucks and a Dream, a collection of nonfiction pieces about her time in Los Angeles. She is also the co-host of one of my favorite podcasts, Smoke 'em If You Got 'em. Nancy, hello.
Hello, Ken. Guten Tag.
Guten Morgen. Well, it feels
Guten
Guten Morgen. I
Morgen.
just kind of rolled
Yeah,
out of bed.
yeah.
Um, so uh, I'm just starting this podcast and just still kind of feeling my way through it. And I think one of the interesting ways to get to know people is through kind of their cultural influences. Like I want to know people's like favorite books, movies, and albums
Yeah.
before we even start the podcast. And I asked you for some of your favorite books, and some of those books I haven't read any of these, but some of them include
Really?
Days of Rage,
Oh,
Lost Girls, The
oh,
Adversary, Shot in the
oh,
Heart, things I need to read. And I fed these into AI without, putting your
oh.
name in there or
Okay.
anything. And I said, I want a psychological portrait of this person. Can I read it for you?
Yes. Oh, this is great.
Okay. It says, this reader is drawn to moral friction, places where personal psychology collides with systems, families, ideologies, or historical forces. They distrust tidy explanations, sentimental redemption arcs, and institutional narratives. What they want instead is interiority under pressure. I don't know what that means. Um, how people actually behave when ideals fail, when families rot, when power reveals itself, when identity fractures. There's also a quiet through line of shame, secrecy, and survival, not in a voyeuristic way, but a steady human gaze. How does that land for you, Nancy?
Pretty darn well. I mean, it's really nicely compact, but this is what I do. I write about people. I've said this before. A lot of my stories, including the book before 40 Bucks and a Dream, which was called To the Bridge, a story of motherhood and murder, was about a woman that threw two kids off a bridge in Portland, Oregon. And I followed the story for a long time and wrote about that. And when that story in particular hit the papers, the idea was two narratives instantly that people knew. They knew why. It was either because she was evil or she was crazy, and good night, or close the door, and that's it. That's the end of the story. And I thought, wow, you sure made it easy on yourself. And what have we learned? And I think that there's always a lot more going on. So yeah, that what the interiority, clumsy word, is something I guess I am interested in. Shame is an interesting thing to mind. I find it has a lot of power, whether you're writing fiction, which I've written some fiction and sometimes nonfiction. But the books I love, and hopefully the books I write, um, are not about the easy narrative, maybe not about the expected narrative. And I don't know if that's going to make for popular reading, but it makes for popular exploration for the writer. So,
Hmm.
what I try to do.
So, some of those books that you gave me, some of them were true crime, not all of them.
No,
You've
not all.
written kind of a true crime book. Now you've got like this separate podcast series about sociopaths. You're really interested in this
Oh,
stuff. My wife, she's always watching like this German true crime. I don't understand German, but I just hear it like on the laptop next to me while we're in bed, and she's like, I shouldn't have watched this right before I went to bed. And my theory was this is kind of comfort food for her. Like there's bad guys, there's good guys. The bad guy's probably going to get caught, or at least the truth will be revealed. For you, what is the allure of all this stuff? What draws you to stories like these?
well, it's interesting because this is pretty well known. Women are either constantly watching crime shows or baking shows, and the crime shows, the vast majority of them are very compact. They're like 45 minutes long. You get the story with the dramatic music, and then it's solved by the end. This brings, I guess, some satisfaction. There's also some idea that women like to be like close to crime, but not really victims of crime. So that's why they're watching. I don't know if that's true. For me, it's always, well, a couple of things. I'll address the first part of what you said. So I have a Substack called Make More Pie, where I do have a, oh, actually, no, I am putting that sociopath series on Smoke 'em If You Got 'em. Sorry, I've
Yeah.
got another Substack. Um, I have written about a lot of people that I would consider on the sociopathic spectrum, whether it's John Wayne Gacy, who was the serial killer who I interviewed on death row, or whether it is a family member who is always trying to charm people out of their money, or Candace Owens, who I just wrote about. There's a that these people believe that they are entitled to get away with certain things. I think that kind of drives me bananas. So I kind of want to dig into it and maybe expose it a little bit.
Hmm.
In terms of true crime, it's sort of going back to what I said before. I kind of want to know the story under the story. Like, how did we get there? Nothing comes out of the blue. You know, Amanda Stott Smith, who was the woman that tossed her kids off the bridge in Portland, Oregon, she didn't wake up that day and go, "Oh, you know what? I think at 1:20 this morning, I'm going to throw my kids off a bridge." That's not how that works.
Yeah, it was a
Right?
long journey to that
It's a
point.
long journey. Thank you for reading that book. And I think most things just almost nothing comes out of the blue. It's calculated or it's triggered emotionally. So that is something I'm always looked at, and this often turns out to be like really pedestrian stuff, but it can accumulate, and that's the story I guess I'm interested in, the story that's kind of animating what we see on the outside, the one underneath. So that's what I'm drawn to.
What I noticed in that book, To the Bridge, was just kind of the cultural forces. She kind of
Mhm.
had this submissiveness to her, probably from her religion and other cultural
Mhm.
forces. And he came from like this working class background, and he was into drugs and stuff like that,
He
right?
was actually not working class. His parents had money, but
That's
yes,
right. Okay, yeah.
he was, so she was very sort of working class, very religious, very close-knit family. He came from not like the kind of money you would think of like in Connecticut with a mansion, but pretty well off. His mom owned a lot of real estate, and he was just one of these young people who always the money always brought him out of his troubles. And the reason for that was not just because they're like, ugh, okay, we're going to bail Jason out again. It's because he's one of these charming people that, and especially with parents, look, you're a parent, I'm a parent, nobody can snow you like your kids, okay?
Hmm.
And if they're on the spectrum of where they're, have these tendencies to take advantage, there's no one like their parents that are going to fall for it. So anyway, yes, he came from that kind of background. She came from the other. She was beautiful. He was not. But he slowly stole from her everything that made her who she was, her looks, her children, her financial security. It was a very bad situation, and it was sort of a cat's cradle that she couldn't get out of. And eventually, she figured a way out, which unfortunately cost the lives of one of her children. And also, so she was caught the same day and put in prison, and she died in prison a couple of years ago. I don't know how. The Oregon state will not release what it is, but I don't think she was murdered. I think she just sort of perished.
Gotcha. Um, and I want to touch on this book a little bit later on, but just to
Sure.
kind of go back to sociopathy, um, that's always been something that's kind of intrigued me, and I wonder if you see any sociopathy in yourself. Like, are you like 4% sociopath? Have you ever reflected on that?
Um, I haven't. Oh, actually, I have wondered occasionally. I actually have a strain of a particular sort of, I don't know if you call it narcissistic, malignant narcissism, sociopathy strain that runs in my family.
Hmm.
Three different family members that I know of, and they're all different generations, and they all sort of act the same, sort of conning. Hello,
Oh, sorry, one second.
that's okay. We have a relative coming in speaking German. Something needs to happen. I'm reading her body language. I'm going to guess it's his mother-in-law. She's closing the door, and we are back. I narrated everything while she was there, so it's okay. So
Okay. That was my mother-in-law. She
that's
forgot that I can only speak English, and she was speaking to me in German. There's 20 people in this house. There's probably going to be at least one more interruption right now.
um, so I've seen this, and as someone who I don't believe is similarly personalitied, um, I've had to do a lot of how do I say, fixing of the things that get unfixed. But I have thought a few times, like, wow, is it possible that I too behave this way and I don't know it? But I don't think so. I think that I'm a pretty straight shooter, and the people that are around me reflect that, and we take care of each other. And sociopaths don't take care of other people for honest reasons. They
Hmm.
will take care of other people. This is actually a trait that runs through a certain strain of sociopathy. They like to be around sick people if it can make them look heroic while they're ministering to these sick people. But it's not really about the person who's ailing or sick. It's about the identity that they believe is being that they are acquiring by appearing to help the ailing or the sick or the dying.
Gotcha. Yeah, they don't sound like nice people at all. I think
No.
I asked that question because I've thought about it myself, especially in relation to like my writing career. And like when you're writing a memoir or you know even doing some interviews and doing like a reported piece, like you're kind of a little bit worried about how this is going to come across for the person, and sometimes you know this isn't going to come across well at all, and you're going to hurt this person, and you're going to do it in service of your piece. And I know there's part of me that's just like, okay, let's do this. I care about the art form, I care about the piece, so I feel a bit sociopathic in those moments. Sometimes I'm willing to take a little bit of damage, say in my personal relationships, for the craft. Does that resonate at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of pieces where people were unhappy. They let me into their lives, and I told their stories as they told them to me, and as other people told them to me, and I wrote them as carefully as I could, and it was holding up a mirror to them that they didn't like. I have had this happen more than once. My editors have gotten letters. I've gotten threatening calls from lawyers threatening to sue me. Nothing ever happened though, because I'm a careful journalist, and I don't actually have I don't have an axe to grind with anybody that I'm writing about. I'm trying to tell the story of what happened. So
So it's in service of the story. The story comes
story is in
first.
charge. The
The truth
story is
comes first.
well, the truth is such a weird thing to say, right? Because you and I could, John Smith, who owns the gas station on the corner, you want to write a profile of him. I want to write a profile of him. They're not going to be the same profile, obviously. But the story has to be in charge. That is something that I think is something of a lost art, because things happen so quickly, and we want to, maybe you're on team A or team B. I love having the time, whether it's for the publications I write for or just on my own, for my own Substack or books, to have the time to let the story be in charge.
Mm.
And sometimes it's like I'm a baker as well. Like sometimes things rise quickly and you can do it quickly, and sometimes it just takes freaking forever. And you know that it. The one thing that I think I've learned, well, I know I've learned as a journalist over 30 years of doing this, is like, when it's not right. Like
Mm.
you just know, like this is getting close. It's there, but it's not there yet.
Just something in your gut telling you it's
Yeah,
not there.
I do it. Or even if I wrote a short piece yesterday, I'm going to be writing some opinion pieces. The Wall Street Journal has a new free expression opinion piece section I'm going to be doing. And I wrote a piece, I actually banged it out really fast. But even, this, like when you've got a piece like 800 words, but then you got to like tick, 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 tick. You got to fine point it. And you know it now because you've been writing long enough to know when it's not quite right. It doesn't sing, it doesn't land. So I think it's the same thing with a long form piece. Like, when it's not right, when you have to go do some more reporting, when maybe you're like, am I lying to myself here by
Yeah.
phrasing it that way? And so, yeah, the stories just take time, and they have to be in charge. I realize people are going to listen to that. Some of them be like, oh, what is this airy fairy crap? The story is in charge. Well, it is. What can I tell you?
I feel a lot with
With
humor. Like I try
humor.
to make my travel books funny, and sometimes I get to a point. This is like my 80th time editing a paragraph, and I kind of like force a laugh, like, huh. But
Mm,
I know it's not like a real laugh that I'm feeling, and then it's just like that's got to go. It doesn't work. It
mm-hmm.
might work for
Yep.
1% of people. But let
Yep.
me transition into 40 bucks and a dream.
Yeah.
And I knew I was going to like it because I love your writing, but I'm not really drawn to stories about LA. And I think that's just because, there's a lot written on the coasts. If I look at some literary fiction, it's probably going to be set in New York City. A lot of stories coming from the West Coast. I'm from Buffalo, New York. I've lived in places like Nebraska and Alaska. Like I want kind of like other
Yeah.
places, but you really get into like the nitty gritty of
Yeah.
of LA, like motel rooms
Uh-huh.
and police bars and
Uh-huh.
but also kind of glitzy and celebrity LA. Like I loved your Jenna Malone story.
Thank
The
you.
JT Leroy thing, that was kind of before my time, so I was just transfixed with this troubled woman writer trying to be had a pseudonym as like this transgender person. Anyways, I want to bring up one essay that'll probably make you blush if that's all right. Um,
Sure.
and and it's about an encounter you had with a stripogram man.
Oh
And
God.
oh man, I
No,
ate
it's
this
fine.
up.
It's fine. I put it in there. Just so your listeners know. So the book is, yes, it's all stories of Los Angeles. Some of them are reported pieces that were LA Weekly cover stories or shorter pieces in the LA Weekly, mostly in the LA Weekly. Some were never before published essays that I just wrote when I was living or when I moved out of LA. So yeah, the stripogram.
The so I won't go into the nitty gritty details of that, but
You
the
can. I don't care.
um,
It's in the book. I mean, people are gonna read it.
but we're
So,
not even sure if he was a stripogram man or just
oh,
like a very
oh,
competent stalker.
I don't. Okay, I think I have to. I think I have to tee this up a little bit for your
Okay, go
listeners.
ahead, go ahead.
Okay, so I worked. I had a little kid in LA. I was a freelance writer, and I got offered this opportunity to write like soft core for Playboy. Right, I
Mhm.
was going to show on Showtime. It wasn't like soft core porn writer. It's actually a lot of pretty successful women writers in LA. So like some punks, some people that had done documentaries. Playboy just had this really weird idea. So okay, I wrote 2 episodes. The series closed. Uh, and the producer was like, whatever. I get this thing saying, I can't even remember exactly what happened, but I get this thing saying that the producer has sent me a gift.
Yeah.
Okay, this is normal. They want to send you a gift. And what was it again? I can't remember what the gift itself was, like a box of donuts or some candy or something. I don't remember what it was.
You described him as doughy. You might be confusing
Right.
doughy
I
and
might be
donuts.
contrite. But whatever it was, this person was going to deliver it, and I was like, okay. And he's like, and he's God. Now I'm even forgetting my own story, but it was something like it came with some sort of like sexy strip. Am I getting this wrong, Ken?
Well,
It's my
he
own
came with a present. No, like you got a present in the mail, and then you got a note saying this comes with a stripogram, or you got a phone call or something.
phone call. That's right. I had a phone call with my daughter who was 4 at the time, and her friend were like eating macaroni and cheese. And this call says, well, it comes with this stripogram thing. And is it a convenient time to come over? And I'm like, yeah, not really. And so I was like, well, maybe Friday. Now, okay, let's back up. Why in God's name would I say this? Well, why would I say this? I was like 32 years old. I'm working in Los Angeles as a nightlife columnist for the big city magazine. I'm writing all kinds of first person stuff all the time. I probably thought it was going to make a good story,
Okay.
right?
Yep.
To have some guy come over and strip for you. Well, anyway, he came over. He was sort of doughy
Yeah.
and not very coordinated. And I
That's when the
remember
sexiness of the scene I just
kind of
couldn't get
starts to
into it.
gets
But
a little flaccid, right? And I remember he told me that he also worked at the Guitar Center, which is a big place in LA on Sunset. All the young guys are getting their guitars there and everything. That's what he told me. Let's say I don't remember his name. Maybe it's in. Let's call him Ken, okay?
oh
And
man. Okay.
Ken tells me he works at Guitar Center, and then he's doing this strip, and he's like, he's touching my leg. Na, 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 na. One thing leads to another. Okay. One thing leads to another. You can leave it at that. People can
Okay.
use their imaginations, their vast imaginations. But then
Can you
I'm like,
describe the dance? Like, do you remember the
it
dance
was
at all?
terrible. he couldn't dance. He was like this, like he looked like a guy that hung out in the back of the 7-Eleven or something. No, he couldn't dance. And but he was like touching my leg and going up. And I'm like sitting in my reading chair where I read, for work and do stuff. And I'm just like, okay. Anyway, the deed is done. The next day, I'm like, I I don't know. I called another one of the gals that had worked on the series, and I'm like, "Did you get this like this
Did everybody get
present?
this guy?
Did
Yeah.
you get this thing?" And everyone's like, "No." And I called the producer, and she's like, "What are you talking about?" And I called Guitar Center. No, Ken works there, and the phone number he called me from went to like some weird looped
Yeah.
system. I just got
He gave you an invoice too, which is a nice touch, but it
Yeah, but
sounded like
not
it was
for me.
completely homemade.
It was a paid invoice, yeah, that he wrote on his mother's typewriter or some shit. But yeah, so basically, I invited some guy into my house so he could fuck me. And I felt very strange after that experience. It's the only experience like that I've had in my life. But hello, Los Angeles, and it made a good story. So there we go.
It was a great story. It's certainly one of the most memorable ones, and this brings me to kind of a topic that you and Sarah talk about on "Smoke 'Em If You Got 'Em" podcast, because you guys are always having like these little uh, spats, and I love those little fights.
When
And
we disagree.
yeah, yeah, and one of your I think your like most common one is about like sex essays and
Mm.
sex memoirs or
Hmm.
love memoirs or
Hmm.
something like that. And Sarah's position is that they're valuable, if I may speak for Sarah. So, they might provide insights into human behavior, modern sexuality, things like that. You seem to say it's too much, it's not helpful. I don't want to read about your love life. So I guess I want to challenge you in a couple ways. One, are you kind of breaking your own rule there by writing about this stripogram? Again, I'm happy
Well,
that you did.
here's the thing. I actually don't like to read about other people's sex lives. I don't know if I'm a little like a good girl that way or something. The essay about the strippogram is funny. It's a very funny piece, and that's why I wrote it. I mean, somebody could write it to be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe what happened to me," and my life always has been terrible, and I make bad choices. That's not what that piece is about. That piece is pure humor and me looking like an idiot, and that's why I wrote it, because it's fun. It really isn't about sex. It's about being ridiculous and a very, very LA story. I think Sarah thinks it's absolutely valuable, and that's great. It's just not what I want to read about. I don't know why. And I certainly don't want, and I know this sounds like I'm contradicting myself, like my my love life, my actual like sex life, I
Hmm.
would not talk to anybody. I don't talk to Sarah about it. I don't talk to my daughter about it. Like it's mine and my guys. Like I consider that extremely private. So other people don't. That's fine. Just for me, that's how it is.
I think it should be private for, 99.999% of people, other than, sharing something with a close friend that you need to share
Yeah,
with. But
sure.
putting it out there in essays and books, it's just like most people shouldn't be doing that unless you're a gifted memoirist who can kind of bring some art and meaning and humor and edification and entertainment to it. So in that way, I'm definitely on Team Sarah's side here. And I have an unpublished manuscript of a love life memoir. So like Sarah, I've been kind of working on something like that. And just like when someone writes about like their love life or sex life, especially like a straight dude writing about it, like I want to get on my knees and just say like thank you. Like thank you for kind of taking like this dark, dimly lit hallway of our lives and shedding some illumination. Because I think what I get out of it is insight and wisdom. It's just like I learn about myself through them. Does that make sense to you?
It does, but I wonder, I think, I mean, at least in the era we're in, we're more used to or conditioned to have women writing about this kind of stuff. Men are like, dudes are dudes. Like, I don't know. I'm working on the car. I don't want to. It's not interesting to me. But I think like the best writers, and we could go back to whether it's Mailer or whoever or DeLillo or whatever. I think there's a lot of fuel in their writing. I'm reading right now A Farewell to Arms, and it's like he's not talking about his sex life, but man, there's a lot of fuel in there that is sexual.
Mm.
So I think I like when you write about it, but you don't look directly at it. Like it's out of the side of the eye, or it's just cloaked. It's there. Like you don't have. It's implied. I guess is the sense. I guess that's how I prefer it.
I think I get that. Like, if you look at some old movies where you just couldn't be explicit about that, and it's just kind of dark and in the corners, I really
Hmm.
appreciate the art of getting it in there. And as everybody knows, art is sometimes best when it has guardrails and boundaries, and you
Hmm.
kind of have to work within them. But I think with regard to this, like when it's, I don't know, like we have so little guidance and wisdom to go on when we're navigating um, matters of the heart in our love lives, that I just kind of want someone to talk about these things. I want like a Bible of love that can kind of help me
Ooh.
navigate these issues. I mean, I don't need that anymore. I'm married, and yeah, maybe I still need a little help here and there. But I think when I was going through my 20s and 30s and dating and contemplating monogamy and permanence and all that, that's when I really wanted just some help. One of my favorite essayists is Tim Kreider. Have you read any of his stuff?
Mm-mm.
I think you would. I'd be very interested to know
How do you
what
spell
you
Kreider?
uh, Kreider.
Yeah, I
He
don't
used to
know.
be a cartoonist during the W. Bush era, and then he
Hmm.
came out with two books of essays. And his writing is just some of the best in
Oh,
the
cool.
English language right now. Like
Great.
every
Great.
paragraph is fresh and alive. And his second one was, "I wrote this book because I love you." So
Oh,
I hope you'll read that, and I'd love to
that's
hear
a very
your.
sweet title. It's like,
Um,
okay. Your book I have to accept.
But let's stay on you and Sarah for a
Sure.
second. Again, it's one of my favorite podcasts, and I've been
Thank
listening to
you.
podcasts for getting close to 20 years now. How do you articulate what makes you as a duo work?
We like talking to each other, and we're that podcast team that is not constantly, but sending each other ideas. Did you see this? Do you like this? Oh my God, that's driving me crazy. Good, we should talk about that. Or did you like this guy? I don't know. I want to read him or a book. Like I just sent her a book by Sebastian Younger because I met him. He's a fast friend, and like she'll read that, and then we'll add. We just also we've been writing, for a combined professionally for combined 50 years at this point, something like that. We have a lot of connections. We have a lot of overlaps of the things that we love. We just are interested to talk to each other. And as you said, we sometimes disagree. And people love that. And we haven't, we have, she's become like one of my best, if not my best girlfriend these days. And it just works. I mean, I'm very happy that people listen to it. Sometimes I'm surprised. I'll meet someone at a party, like some famous person, and they'll be like, "Oh, I love your podcast." I'm like, "Really?" um, it's very satisfying, and I love doing it. I love having a podcast. I mean, one of the reasons we did it, I was really looking to podcast with somebody, and she said yes. I got down on one knee. She said
I
yes.
I love how you guys have those disagreements, and it's a mark of a secure relationship when you can get a little full throated, and
Yeah.
both of you, and
Uh huh.
it's not like you're worried about the relationship coming to an end. Sometimes I'm like, is someone going to chuck like a podcast mic against the wall now? Like it can get be pretty heated. Do those ruptures, do they ever last beyond the podcast episode? Do you guys not talk for like a week or
Oh God,
something?
no, no,
No.
no, 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 not even close. I think there's been. Sorry, I live in New York City. I live next door to a firehouse. You might hear some fire engines in the background. I think there was one episode. I don't remember what it was now. Like we finished, and I think we were both like a little snitty, like but no, 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 never last. And sometimes it's just funny because as Mike Pesca named me knee jerk Nancy. I get out there, I pull out my soapbox, I yell for a little while. She, humors me. No, we never, no, no, no. We've never had heavy weather that lasted more
I
than
I vote to retire knee jerk Nancy, by the way,
really.
because yeah, because
Okay.
knee jerk connotes that you're wrong, that you're emotional and you're wrong. You're coming to like a knee jerk decision, and oftentimes you're right. And but you're passionate.
It's
Um,
cute.
yeah,
Yeah, that's fine.
you're
That's
okay with
fine.
it. You
Oh
can live
yeah,
with it.
that's fine. Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
I like. Go ahead.
um, there's two conversations. I've listened to almost every episode of
Whoa,
Smoke 'Em.
dude,
Yeah,
we're on 237, not including all the smoking diaries and pie talks and sociopaths. So
I
that's a
haven't
lot
listened
of
to all of that
episodes.
stuff, but
Okay.
but there's two conversations that I thought were like going off the rails. So when I say that, do the do the people come to mind? Do the interviewees come to mind when I say that?
Oh, Michael Tracy.
Yeah, yeah. I was yeah, and what Sarah was doing was kind of giving her one of her like big introductions, and started to like talk about the Wikipedia page of Michael Tracy in a completely non-malevolent way. I think she was just like conveying information, and he just kind of freaked out.
Well, he wouldn't let her. He interrupted her. Like, I mean, I haven't listened back to it, but like maybe 14 times during his introduction. Now, I know Michael. I've met him several times. We've been to events together. We were in Poland together because I was going into Ukraine. He was there. We had dinner. He reported from Poland. I went into Ukraine. Like, I know Michael, not well, but she had never had the Michael Tracy experience. So it was like she was getting pelted in the face with pebbles. It's like, whoa, what's happening here? Um, anyway, so you want the second one? You want me to say what
Well,
I think?
just to comment on that,
Sure.
like, I I don't know what this is gonna sound like, but I do consider myself like a well-adjusted person. Like, I think I could take an insult or a bad introduction breezily. It seemed like he couldn't handle that, but at the same time, like, and he talked about kind of his obsession with these Epstein
Yeah.
files, and I was
Yeah.
just like, there needs to be like people like Michael Tracy, who are a little bit rough around the edges, who are going to be really interested in stuff, obsessive, going to poke people, going to be angry with people. Like, I'm just not that person. I'm just too kind of calm and mild mannered. So while I recognize he came across as a little maladjusted in that exchange, I also see how that could be an asset for a writer like
It's his
him.
personality, and everyone who knows Michael is like this, and he can, like, sometimes his opinions are just so crazily wrong. You're like, okay, you know but he's, I think he's done really. He's a deep diver, and a whole lot more than 99.9% of journalists have done on Epstein, and a story I'm not particularly interested in myself. um and though I could be, you never know, another 20 million documents could be released next week by the Justice Department. But I think that his position on it is interesting. It's counter to a lot of the narrative, and I think it's valuable. And he's reporting now for Matt Taibbi's site,
Oh,
Breaking
okay.
News.
Which
Yeah.
brings me to the other guy, which is Walter Kern,
Oh.
who I think or does a podcast. Do you remember that exchange that you had with
Oh, I
Walter?
do, because I called. Who was it that I called an
You talked about
authoritarian?
the autocratic leader of Hungary, and you
Yes.
just kind of sent some like mild criticism their
I
way, which I've
and
never
I
been to Hungary, but I thought that was perfectly justified. And
he yeah
he said like,
he
"Who's talking? Is that Nancy?" And
he got very snippy with me, and I was like, whoa. I was trying to backpedal because I'm not like a great historian on on European countries' ideologues, and I thought I was right. I thought, and I don't know if I had compared, if I had said something about Trump being authoritarian or something, but in any case, he was not happy about this, and he dressed me down, and I was like trying to be super nice, and he just kept going, but he did apologize afterwards.
He did,
He's like
okay,
he's like,
that's
"I'm
good to
sorry.
know.
I'm
I
sorry. I'm sorry, Nancy." I didn't care. I think it makes for good podcasting. I
It
mean,
does. It
you
makes for
know,
good entertainment,
it's
and,
fine.
we're everyone's so nice on these podcasts nowadays. It's good to see some, like,
That's
old
fine.
school,
Totally fine.
yeah,
We're actually
um
gonna have him back on.
oh,
He and, yeah, I won't, you know, I won't what do they I won't scoop myself, but yeah, he's gonna be coming back on. So, yeah.
okay, well, that
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
rupture was
Yeah.
repaired. I still thought he was out of line, but,
I thought it was funny,
ok
actually.
okay, okay. Um, uh, I know you've been on a ton of podcasts. You've done 250, like 250 smoke 'em if you got 'ems. So I'm gonna ask you if you're okay talking about something. But if you've talked
Sure.
about it a million times, it's okay if you just like
Do it.
don't want to go down this direction. But I'm interested in talking about ristretto coffee. Can we
Oh,
talk about
let
that?
sure.
You
Just
don't sound
quickly.
excited though.
Well, it's just, it's something that it happened now. It's 20, almost 20. Well, no, it's not almost 2026. It is 2026. It happened on January 9th, 2019. I was sitting on my bed with my husband in Portland, Oregon, watching something on TV, and he got an email from an employee who said, "I think you should know that a former employee who had been the kind of general manager of all the cafes. My husband was a coffee roaster and had 5 or 6 cafes at the time in Portland. A former employee who had quit in August. She had been there a while, and he and her, they really weren't getting on, and she left unhappily right before he was about to fire her. Anyway, I think you should know. I'm just going to call her by the letter C. I don't feel like going more deeply into that. Other than that, is has sent this letter around. She's asked other employees to sign it, and she's sending it to the press. And it basically said that a podcast I had been doing, I had done 3 whole episodes of, with another journalist based in New York City named Leah McSweeney, who was later a Real Housewife of New York. We had a podcast called hashtag Me Neither, that was basically questioning some of the overreach of the Me Too movement.
Hmm.
We had each written about Asha Argento. Asha Argento was the girlfriend of Anthony Bourdain, who had committed suicide, who had been pumping money to her to cover up the fact that she'd slept with an underage boy. At the same time, she was one of the faces of Me Too. And we both separately, before we knew each other, had written about how we thought that was a bad look for Me Too. If you've got a woman that has been credibly accused with photo documentary of sleeping with a 17-year-old, and her boyfriend, who has just committed suicide, has given $300,000 to this boy, we thought she was probably not the best face of Me Too. So we talked about that on the air. We talked
I didn't realize you only did 3 episodes
Well, I
of
did
that.
5 altogether because I did 2 after the whole pylon. So there was that. We did one about the Kavanaugh hearings. We did one basically talking about, like, we got to get some due process here, because you can't say that an R. Kelly and what he did to a lot of young women is the same as an Aziz Ansari who served a wrong kind of wine to a girl, had a sexual thing with her, and then she went public to destroy his career. These just aren't the same things. And Leah is a survivor of, or had been sexually assaulted. I've certainly had my incidents when I was younger with men accosting me. We were very adamant about, there are people that are actually raped, and rape kits sit for years, and judges have this backup of cases. We really need to extend our resources and our sympathies and to people like this, rather than someone that says he bought me the wrong kind of wine and I feel like he should be destroyed.
Yeah.
Okay. Right now, these are things you could say in 2025, 2026, which are completely anodyne. Nobody will bat an eye. In 2018, it was a little ahead of the curve.
It
Anyway,
was ballsy. Yeah.
well, I didn't consider it ballsy. That's the thing. I was like, this is just normal. Like, we're having conversations. And the whole tagline was like, talking about difficult topics. Anyway,
So you kinda didn't know, like, the moment where we were in, where
I
people were
did, but
so sensitive, and would mob you.
well, that I understood was happening, but I also thought I am very against people who play the victim for their own whatever, their own sunshine, their own getting ahead. There are people that are victims in this world, absolutely. And I understand we all have different gradations. Like, I could go to a party, some guy pinches my ass, and I'm like, get the fuck off me, right? I don't care. I don't think about it. Somebody else, this really rocks their world, and maybe for 25 years. I personally think that is excessive, but we were in a weird time where none of that mattered. You had to kind of toe the line. Well, in any case, the letter goes out to the press, and it says that my podcast puts the employees of Ristretto Roasters, my husband's business, in danger, uh, and I'm and by extension the community. And we were in a moment in Portland, Oregon, especially a young town with a lot of activism, that they ate it up. And people also are terrified that if they associate with you, your shame is going to bounce onto them. She was claiming I was an owner of the company. I never was. I had worked with him and helped him doing some backroom stuff, but it was his company. It wasn't mine. Basically, everybody fled. The employees quit. The wholesale customers, which make up most of his business, fled. The people that baked the vegan brownies wouldn't bake the brownies. The people that washed the cloths wouldn't wash the cloths. He needed repair on his machine. He kept calling the people that had done it for years, and finally the guy said, "I can't. My wife won't let me. She's done." We had friends leave, and my marriage, which was already I was already settling on the East Coast a little bit, was kaput, and we had to sell the house, and he lost everything. So that was
Jeez.
that.
Yeah.
And it was, as I said, a long time ago. Life rolls on. It was certainly worse for him than it was for me. This was a business he built. I'm going to get
So
all.
you're not with that partner anymore.
Yeah, I cannot hear you. Your sound cut out just now a little bit.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can. Um, he built this business with his hands and his home like equity line of credit. He never had anybody give him anything. I mean, his best friend loaned him $5,000 when he first opened, and my dad helped us a little too. But it was really a crying shame. And it's one of these stories. I was then living in New York, and he lives in Arizona now. And you go on, you survive, but some people don't survive these kinds of piles-ons. I have written about them a lot. I'm writing about one of them now, another story that was really nutty that happened in January of 2020 when Me Too was still burning down the culture.
I'm so sorry
So
you went through all that, Nancy. Do you think you'll write a book about Ristretto?
your sound it's weird. I don't know if it's me or it's you.
Let me just
there's
unplug. Hold on.
Oh, I got it. It was me. It was me. It was me.
Oh,
It was me. I,
okay.
I touched I touched a button that I shouldn't
I
have
asked, do you think you'll
touched.
write about Ristretto?
I have, when
A
all of
book?
a book, no, I won't write a book about Ristretto, no. But I may do some writing about 2020,
Hmm.
and maybe that filters in there. We'll see. I have written a lot about it. When it all happened, I was very helpless. I was very powerless to stop what was happening. But I did publish 4 stories in one week. One in the LA Times, one on Quillette, one in Reason, and another on Medium. Because my another thing, which was interesting, my book had just come out, To the Bridge, and it had been very successful. It was on the cover of most of the magazines and newspapers in Portland. And with these things, you have to notice, and you will notice now that I'm mentioning this, or people don't go after like their dry cleaner when this happens. They need a target that is going to have some sort of impact, right?
Hmm.
They don't usually go after anonymous people because it's not going to get them the sort of maybe credibility they're looking for, or make people feel bad for them, or have the impact. So once I've now said this, you'll notice that people go after the big fish. Not that I was a big fish, my God, I was maybe a big literary fish in a small pond. But yeah, it wasn't good, wasn't great.
Well, if Ristretto is the movie, I'm wondering what the prequel is in terms of what brings you to be someone who, you know, opposes peak wokeness, as a lot of us did, but not only that, but like who openly speaks out against aspects of it, which very few people were willing to do back then. And I think where I'm going with this question is there a direct link from your life experiences as a journalist that let you hold the positions and views that you do, that made you outspoken about the excesses of Me Too?
Maybe. I think that we started talking about um, the easy answers. When we any sort of movement that is happening, there's a certain, there I covered the protest movements extensively in Portland in 2020 and 2021, and there were the certain lines: ACAB, all cops are bastards. Everybody has the little sing song things that they're supposed to do, and you sort of get into this like belief system that don't stray from it, don't stray from it, because our movement does not have the tensile strength to be strayed from. I'm going to bring it back to the protest movement, but I will loop back to what you were asking. I've written 100 stories about the protest movement in Portland, and I would interview a lot of different kinds of people, like cops and protesters and this. And when I would go to a lot of these young protesters, I was like, "All right, I know you've been here. I know you're pelting flaming garbage at the cops. You burnt down the station. You've done this. You've lit the dumpster on fire. Can you tell me what it is you're trying to build?" Photography equals death. I'm like, okay, great. All right, tell me what it is you're like. And they couldn't,
Mm,
because they didn't get that far. They only got to the sloganeering. They only got to the way it made them feel to be part of a movement. It was epiphanic. As I've written, it was near orgasmic every night in the streets. You're locked up in your house during COVID, but at night you can get out there and scream and be with your friends and change the world. Well, they didn't change the world, and they did a whole lot of damage to Portland, which had been a city on the rise and now is a city in the doldrums. So I guess for me, I'm trying to get past the sloganeering. I think Me Too did a lot of that at the beginning too. It was like, it wasn't believe all women, it was believe women. Okay, sure. Believe anybody. Believe but verify, right? And that was the thing that you were not supposed to do. Because doing that not only was counterproductive to women moving forward, it was actually re-victimizing them historically, because historically they have not been believed. I'm like, that is true. And that is why I'm telling you what we should work toward is getting the rape kits tested. What we should work toward is making sure that the court systems are not flooded with things that are like quasi cases of Me Too.
mm,
Let's be solid. That was not a popular position. And you know what? May not be a popular position right now, but I believe, I mean, we've never done it, but because I'm slow, but our swag for Smoke 'em is going to be t-shirts that say "Hot for due process,"
mm.
because I believe in due process. I believe that you are innocent until proven guilty, and we lived through a time in this country, and I think forever will, under certain aspects of what we do, where it's like, no, you will believe now, or you're the enemy. And I don't agree with that.
And to go back to kind of my original question, like, does being in an LA motel and an LA police bar and following someone like Amanda, who tried to kill her two children, throw them off of a bridge, does that really shape like your political outlook, or just your view of humanity? I guess what I'm getting at is, I think, let me answer the question for you.
Sure.
I think I think when you kind of like get out of your bubble and see the real world, it kind of vaccinates you against extreme beliefs. And I've had like a university bubble I've been in. I have like a middle class suburban bubble I've been in, but I've also hitchhiked 10,000 miles across North America alongside carnies and alcoholics and people who like were coming just out of prison, and pipeliners and truckers. And I feel like those experiences again, like, vaccinated me against, extreme beliefs because I could see the humanity and the larger story happening. Does any of that resonate?
100%. Vaccinate against simple beliefs is 100%. I mean, you know, we live in a country now where it's so polarized in terms of, you know, Trump or the other side and this and that. And, you know, you meet people like I could never be friends with someone that voted for Trump. I'm like, you know, I'm gonna bet you already are and you don't even know it. And my solution to this was, and Matt Welch and I have talked about this and written about this, it's like I challenge you to get in your car, if you have a car, and drive 2,000 miles or drive for 5 days, let's say, whatever, drive 1,000 miles. And every day when you stop, talk to two or three people at the Waffle House, at the gas station, at the Walmart, because you're going to be stopping at Walmart for something, Band-Aids, deodorant, something. And then tell me that you hate your fellow Americans because you're not going to be able to do it. We do not live in a world where there are these kinds of people and those kinds of people. You're being told to do that, and it simplifies everything to say, oh, he's Republican or she's a liberal or whatever. But really, we're people, and we have stories, and they are not what you might think they are. I too have written about carnies. I hung out at the carnival once in sort of in the desert area of California and talked to the carnies. I have a sweet, sad story. That was another story that was on the cover of the LA Weekly. One thing I say a lot is that even when people are lying to you, they're telling you their story. And there was a guy I kept seeing, and he worked the Ferris wheel. And he said to me, you know, he would sleep just like on the straw under the Ferris wheel. They're carnies, you know. And he said to me, you know, this is not who I am. This is not who I am. I'm an artist. I'm an artist, and I have actually a piece of mine called Floral Still Life at I can't remember like the Smith Gallery in New York City. And he was so happy to tell me this that like that someone would recognize him for who he really was. So when I was writing the article, I looked it up and there was no such gallery.
There was no thing. Okay.
No, there was no still life. But he was telling me like what was in his heart and what he in his hopes. This is like God. I mean, this is what my daughter and I call the good ow. It like hurts so much, but you need to have that hurt in order. It's like the connection you have, the sort of mind melding or heart melding you get with someone when you talk to them when they tell you their story, even when they're lying. And I mean, you know this too. Like this is the most privileged job in the world, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow. Wonderfully said. And backing up to Ristretto, I'm so sorry you went through that. Like, that sounds
Oh,
like the hardest.
thank
That
you.
must have been. Was that the hardest thing you've ever gone through?
Well, here's a little counterintuitive thing that happened. My daughter's dad, who's not my husband, was living with us, going through his second bout of cancer. This time it was terminal. The first one, I wrote a modern love about it. It's kind of nice, called "Taking My Ex Back for His Own Good." But then 5 years later, cancer came back, and he lived with us. My daughter was home. She was a wreck, taking care of her dad like a mother hen. Her husband at the time was there. My husband was there, kind of losing everything, and everybody was a mess. And I couldn't fall apart. Like I couldn't. There was no
Mm,
possible way. And sort of, it sounds kind of awful, but also kind of great. And he would love it if I said this. Tim, my daughter's dad, him being there sort of like anchored us in a way because we had to take care of him every day and keep things sort of quiet. And he died with me. I was with him when he died. I washed his body. I took care of him. And I, for something happened during that time where I I didn't fall apart. And I think it made me, like you were talking about being inoculated. I think having to stay or choosing to stay, I don't know, being not cheerful, but like as calm as possible through all that, that stayed with me. That's like it changed me to be sort of the maybe the calm person in the room. I don't think I was hysterical before that, but it was life changing. It's been
It's
that way.
also interesting how you went straight from a very online conversation, and I know this was more than just online for you, it came into your life and your husband's business and all that. But you went from this online conversation to something very corporeal and material,
Mhm.
someone actually dying and having to
Yeah.
care for someone. And I can imagine how that might help put things in perspective.
Yeah, it does. When he's right there and you're giving him some food, and my daughter and I, we learned how to drain his lung. We're like, yo, we're gonna get a side hustle. We're gonna be some lung drainers here, and like
Jeez.
and like, he was such a great guy, and his like he never complained, and it was a very, I mean, part of it was horrible, yeah, but part of it also, I just sort of remember it being, we encapsulated ourselves. And but thank you for saying that. What's interesting though is like, okay, so here I am talking with you, put out other books, have a successful podcast, successful journalism career, and people are like, "Oh, you weren't canceled. What are you talking about?" It's like, okay, sure, you just keep going on and believing that. That's fine. All good.
That's yeah,
All
that's
good.
terrible to kind of just look
It's
away from
fine.
someone's experience and pain like
I
that.
You know what? I've said this before. Like, I'm dealing right now because my mom is dying, and I'm having to deal with a lot of institutions that behave very badly, or some sort of political thing that is going on, and they just act so badly. I'm like, you know what? They get to hang out with each other, and I get to hang out with all these really wonderful people. So
Mm.
I win.
You just announced that you're starting a new series called The Night Nurse, and when I heard that, I was like, "Oh, that sounds sexy."
It does well. I don't know how sexy it's going to be. It's
No,
called the Musings of the Night Nurse, and I wrote my first piece. I would love it if people go over and read it. I've got a Substack called Make More Pie, or nancyrommelman.substack.com. I am going to write about what it is like to be. You've got, for me, it's an elderly mom, but it could be someone else that's just in your family that is suffering, and the entities set up to prey on the vulnerable. It is incredible. It's incredible. And you can't know it until you're there. One of my mom's caregivers, my favorite one, told me that yesterday. She's like, people don't know until they're there. Until you're there and you realize, oh my God, these people have their hands in my pocket, and they know that I have so many fires to put out right now that they're going to get away with it. It's pretty rough, and it goes from like the kind of like podunk half-wit in Poughkeepsie to multinational corporations. And the medical community. It's wild. Anyway, I'm going to write another one today. So
and
it's
I'll
going to be
put them
so
in the
fun.
show notes.
Oh,
And
cool, cool.
we need to talk about another vulnerable population, which is
Yes.
straight white millennial
Oh,
men.
my
Um,
dudes, dudes.
do I see your podcast as a very kind of male friendly podcast. Do you know the demographics? Like, are you like, I imagine you kind of like 50-50 men, women.
Well, I don't. I think we're skew actually a little more for men, and I know my readers, my Substack readers, and people who read my. Okay, I know that I have more. Like 80% of my Twitter followers are men. I know that. Um, and I can't say whether my readers are men or if they're just the ones that make comment more than women. Like they'll reach out to me and say this or that or blah 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 blah. I think, yeah, we're probably about 50-50. We love men. Sarah and I, just like, that's our other t-shirt. We love men, or our ashtrays, or whatever we're going to make.
And
Yeah,
that's why
we're
I was waiting for you guys to talk
yeah,
about this piece in Compact. I was like, when are Sarah and Nancy going to talk about this? But we're going
yeah,
to have that conversation now. Maybe you'll have it
yeah,
again with Sarah.
yeah.
But just a little bit of background. Jacob Savage, this writer, I think he started off as like a screenwriter in Los Angeles.
Yep.
He's come out with a couple pieces this past year for Compact magazine, which I didn't know anything
Fairly
about.
new. About
Yeah,
3
his
years.
first one was about like where has the white male writer gone, and he was looking at like a lot of pipelines to writing, fellowships, awards, and when you analyze the data, there's just kind of like
It's crazy.
no straight male millennial men represented anymore, or like there's like one or two. And for this one, this is kind of his magnum opus. He came up with one called The Lost Generation 2 weeks ago, where he looked at things much more broadly. It wasn't just um, like uh, writing award committees, it was publishing, cultural institutions, TV, academia, and kind of what he sees is once again just like all these straight white millennial men have been kind of kept out of these positions because of some overzealous DEI programs. Let me pause there and just ask, what were your impressions of the essay?
Been hearing for a couple of years